I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a thrilling blend of science fiction, fantasy, and conspiracy with a terrific author. His name is Fritz Franke, and he has penned a powerful series. Today, we are focusing on one of the books, The Chosen One, from the SAVIOR Project series. This gripping novel explores a secret history spanning decades where life exists across the universe. Guardians watch us from the shadows, and one man, Chris Gates, is trained to lead humanity's salvation. With covert missions, alien influence, and a shocking identity reveal, The Chosen One is the explosive start to a 9-book saga that you won't want to miss. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing books. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Fritz, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you for having me, Logan. I really appreciate this.
Great to have you on the show. Your series is terrific. Let's talk a little bit about the genesis of it all. How did you come up with the idea? And were you planning on a series at first, or perhaps just one book? Tell us how it all began.
Well, it's interesting how this started. This was back in 2004. I was selling a car, and you know how you ride along with the guy who's test driving it. And so the chit chat happens. I said, so what are you doing? He says, well, I'm an author. I went, really? I've always wanted to write books. And he, right off the bat, said, well, you got to have something to write about. You got anything? I went, well, I told him about these dreams I had in the early 80s. And it was this about the chosen one. And I don't know how I just blurted this out. And he said, so tell me a little bit about it. And so I did. And I said, the dreams keep reoccurring because I learned a lot about dreaming and how to make dreams come back. And you go back into dreams. We can cover that later if you want. But he said, you should write this stuff. This sounds fascinating. And I went, okay. So I sat on that thought for about a year and then sat down in my office at my computer and said, all right, I'm going to start writing. And I realized I didn't know how to write a book. I had no idea. So went back to school in the writing program at the University of Virginia and started from scratch and learned how to write novels, point of view, all these things that I didn't even know about. And now I know about them. Now, the beauty of being able to come out with a second edition is that I wrote the first one, this one here, back in 2012, and then rewrote it, just finishing the editing and so forth. And that is this one. And you can see the difference in these two. That's the old one.
Yep.
And he looks older there. And that's the new one. Well, he is younger. So my writing skills changed quite a bit. We kicked it 20 years into the future. And that made for a lot of changes, especially on the moon, where the Talokians are. So I know how to write now. And I've got quite a few books out there. I also love sports, especially baseball. I've got a baseball book that's been selling quite well for a while, and another one in the works now that is fascinating. It's just it's exciting to think about. It's about a kid who changes baseball forever because of the way he pitches the ball. And I was at an author talk at one of the local bookshops, and the gentleman who was supporting this author was John Grisham. And so I got to meet John, and I said, I'm writing a book about baseball, and you have to be one of the main characters in it. And he goes, am I painted in a positive light? I said, absolutely. You discover the kid who changes baseball forever. He goes, I want to read that. I said, okay. He says, well, when you're done with the entire thing, let's sit down together. You give me the manuscript, I'll read it and give you my take on it. I went,
Wow.
okay, sounds good. So that's another exciting project. And then I've got another one that's written. It's called The Fish of Lake Erie, but it's a comedy, but only the dead ones because there are too many live ones there. And it's narrated by Big Mouth Betty Bass. And yeah, I mean, it's just funny.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do a variety of genres, and that's exciting too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your work is very, very diverse. And I think that's part of the art of the craft and you flexing your muscle and showing that you're a strong writer. Let's give the folks at home an overview of The Chosen One. Give them a little bit of what the story is about.
well, Chris Gates, the hero, in one of my classes, my professor, who's also one of my mentors, said you have to have heroes and you have to have villains. Now,
Mhm.
your hero can't be perfect. Well, Chris Gates is not perfect. As he's growing up, he makes mistakes, but he also exhibits a special skill for being able to do things with his mind, and he doesn't know he has this skill. He stumbles upon it.
Mhm.
And of course, he's being watched from afar. And from afar, the other race of people, and they're humans, they come from the planet Tlokia, and they have a base on the moon, the dark side of the moon, of course.
Mm.
So they can't be detected down in the Aiken crater. So they're well hidden. But they monitor him using technology, for example, an X-13 probe that looks like a fly. It's the
Mhm.
size of a small 22 caliber bullet. It flies around. It's just like a full-fledged camera, uh, interactive, and because of the Tlokian technology, it will, like, for example, when Chris was a baby asleep, this thing would fly in, sit on his pillow, and just send information to his mind
Mm.
to make him stronger. But it happened when he's asleep, never during the day. He doesn't know what's going on during the day. But this kid becomes extremely intelligent and doesn't even realize that he's like this. So
Mm.
he grows up very successful at things. And in the book, for example, yes, I have baseball in this book too. And on the front cover of the
It looks
old
like he's
one,
about to catch a pop fly or something, right?
well, what happens is in a championship game out in California, they call it the California Small College World Series.
Mhm.
He's playing for Shepherd University, and which was a real university at the time
Mhm.
when he was alive at that point. The university no longer exists. But a ground ball was hit towards him. Now he's being watched from afar because all these probes are everywhere filming everything. And so the leaders of this particular mission for the Tlokians are watching this, and they see as Chris Gates leaps out to gather this grounder, and the ball bends as it's bouncing towards his glove,
Mm.
which he didn't see it. It happened so fast, no one saw it, but the Tlokians saw it and went, "This isn't good. He's
Mm.
not supposed to be able to be doing this while he's away." Of course, he pops up, makes the throw, gets the guy out, and they win the championship. But the thing that's unique about this part of it is there are what are called mind meetings.
Mhm.
Now, they have a chamber up in the base Gaia. Gaia is the old Greek term for Mother Earth, and that's what they named the Tolokians named the base that, um, where you can get into this chamber, and then with a probe next to Chris while he's asleep, they meet somewhere,
Mm.
as if they're in person, so that Zenta, who is the heroine of the Tolokians, the one who's in charge of Chris's training, they meet. Of course, this is the Tolokians. They are human, but they are well advanced beyond us. We will be, see, this is one of the lessons in here. we will be like Trilokans one day. They're all the same race. They have white hair because they're suns, and they are two suns rotating around each other. Um, make their hair white. So perfectly white hair, olive skin, ever so eyes that would be very similar to a Vietnamese person. And they're just beautiful people. They really are. And we will be like that one day. Our races are going to eventually join together to where there's just going to be one race. See, just one of those little lessons that I try to put out there. So with Chris being trained by these people, he does become much more, I guess, smarter, but not, he doesn't realize when he comes back from these mind meetings, he doesn't know they happened. He has no idea. But it's amazing how quickly he picks up languages. He does play briefly for the New York Yankees because they draft this kid. I mean, he's good, but he had a choice to make between family matters and continuing a baseball career, and he picked family matters. Well, as he should. So he then goes into politics because he wants to change things. He's got a name out there now, and he runs for the Senate saying, I've got a job to do. These are the accomplishments I want to have. And after I accomplish these things, then I'm done. I am there to serve the country. It's not a career. I wish more politicians would view it that way. And then I'm going to go back to my job, just like a serviceman would do in the Army. So I'm going to go back and let my accomplishments stand for themselves. So he proceeds through life and ends up being a professor at a prestigious university, still altering and changing people's perceptions of how they view the world. And then one day, when he does play softball, of course he does. I mean, the book opens and this is reason local people like this, opens in a local softball park here in Charlottesville. And in the very first chapter, a lot of times people write books when the action happens in the first and then in the first chapter, and then we come along and we go back in time and fill in back up to that point again. Okay, when he's taken away by Trilokans, it's a huge extravaganza of lights and everything, and he's gone. He's taken away. And then it goes back, oh, he's born. And then we find out all the things that happened with the Trilokans. And then in the last chapter, he's taken away. But this time it's from the view of the Trilokans above who are taking him away. It's not rehashing what happened on Earth. It's like, we've come to get you. And then there's mayhem down, at the park and so forth like that. And all of my books in the entire series, and this reviewers have said, they say, boy, do you ever just drop us off? You leave us with cliffhangers. Well, that's what I'm known for. After that, he's gone. What happens? Well, you got to get book 2. And that's called Trilokya. And then that's about when they're traveling to Trilokya to train him to come back to Earth and lead Earth in a battle that is going to happen against, they're called Velopters. Okay, so back in the dinosaur era, the most intelligent reptiles out there were velociraptors. If we hadn't had that meteor hit the Earth, they would have evolved into the top species. I mean, they were already communicating. They were doing everything, and boom, they were done. But that's not the only planet that has velociraptors. There were, I guess, other planets, but I identified one, and they lived there. They evolved. They're highly intelligent. And they like to mine humans for food.
Hmm.
Oh, yes. And they're mad at Earth because they thought it was humans, the humans' fault that wiped out the dinosaurs. Well, there weren't any humans there. So um, it has some interesting twists and turns as the book continues. I mean, the series continues.
Sure.
He's ending with a cliffhanger. Just have to happen.
Amazing. Amazing. Very compelling stories, no doubt. Have you envisioned this as a series of films?
Well, everyone, we had a movie deal offer come in one time, and my lawyer said that, excuse me, that they didn't agree with it because the movie people, mid-level company out in California, wanted 100% of the merchandising.
Hmm.
Well, let's look at Darth Vader and the merchandising that Lucas
Right.
earns off of that. And my lawyer said, nope, no, we're not going to do that. Can you see Chris Gates action figures selling for whatever and you get nothing?
Right.
So they squashed that and said, let's not entertain any more movie deals until the new second editions come out and everything else. Then we'll talk about that with whoever contacts us. But I wrote these, and reviewers have said this is made for the TV. It is absolutely made for TV. Now, one of my guys on my team he's an AI engineer, and he's just a genius, has developed a a piece of software, new software that you can take, like he's done it with my books. But you've heard audiobooks before
Mhm.
that, you hear a guy on there going, and then Joe ran over here, and then Mary came and said, he talks in a higher voice. Wow. Look, I love audiobooks, but this piece of software, he just drops one of my books into it and it creates a total soundtrack as if it was for a movie with a
Wow.
narrator in there because visually you don't see anything, but every single character has their own distinct voice. If you hear a rocket taking off, then you hear that noise in the background. It has lead in music, um, upscale music for, exciting events. The whole thing happens and it's really like the soundtrack for a movie. I mean, I was amazed at it. Guess who the narrator is? Me.
Wow. Well, you got a great voice, so I could see that for sure. That's
Well, I
wonderful.
wasn't going to do it, but this guy said, no, no, your voice has got to be it. I went,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that. And all he needs is just a half-hour recording of it. Then he can replicate it all the way
Amazing.
through the program. Yeah,
Amazing. So he can take your book, put it in the AI program, it creates the music, it creates the sound effects, and then it can generate your voice after it has a half hour of you reading to read the rest of the series.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
know.
It's a great age to be alive in, right?
Yeah, but this has never been done by anyone. I
Right.
originally was going to use UVA drama department to get up and act these things, but just say them. But then when this gentleman came along and said, "Hey, I want to work with you," I went, "Okay, about what?" He said, "Your audiobooks."
Wow.
And here we are.
That's
So when
great. So are your books all out in audio right now, or just the first one? Tell us about that.
no, nothing is ever been done in audio book
Mhm.
yet for any of them. And I'm glad because now when this new second edition of the first three books comes out as a trilogy, they'll have the audiobooks right along with them when it comes out. And it takes 5 minutes,
Right.
5 minutes to drop a book in and then have an audiobook. That's all it
Amazing.
takes.
Absolutely amazing. Are all of your books for sale right now? There's 9 in the series. Tell us a little bit about how readers can buy your books.
Well, the first edition of the first three books are still out there for sale. The second edition ones are we were hoping to have this done right before the interview, but my editor, she's very thorough. She's the one who discovered me
Mhm.
in a UVA writing class, but she's very thorough and says, we're not making any mistakes on this. So she's formatting these three books right now, and she estimates she'll be done in about 2 to 3 weeks. So it's
Within
still
the next few
time.
months, likely. Yeah.
Well, she's pretty fast.
Yeah. Okay.
And the new website just went live today,
Wonderful.
um, with all the all of the books are out there on the website with front covers and back covers
Great.
with like on a back cover.
Do you know the domain of the website?
Sir?
Do you know the domain of the website?
www.fritzfranke.net.
There you go. That's easy to remember.
I did
FritzFranke.net.
very much so.
Wonderful.
But on the back covers, like
Mhm.
on Trilogy, book number 2, I always have had a famous author and a famous business person. For example, yeah, the famous business person on this enchanting story draws readers into a fantastical world where death is not final, the future revisits the past, and time distances are not absolute. Trilogia begins where the chosen one left us hanging. Yeah, see, with the Savior assuming his role as Earth's protector. Will he be successful at saving us? Stand by for book 3. Catherine Thornton, former shuttle astronaut Discovery mission specialist in 1989.
Hmm.
Endeavour maiden flight crew, 1992. Endeavour mission specialist, 1993. Columbia payload commander, 1985. UVA professor of aerospace engineering. I'd call that a famous person.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
And then the famous author is Fritz Franke. He's a master storyteller. I won't read the whole thing, but it's Ron Washburn, best-selling author of The Lady Gunslinger and Future History, Las Cruces, if I'm pronouncing that right, New Mexico.
Wow.
And that holds true on the back of all the books. And since book 5 is only halfway written, book 4 is done. That was
Right.
done 8 years ago. And
Mhm.
a little mishap happened where it set my career back. Not my fault, but
Right.
it took me out of the spotlight for a while. And book 0 came up just by accident. My editor was reading my blog and she says, "You've written the history of Talokia. It's all written here in your blog." And I didn't even think about it. She says, "You need to make a prequel, the history of Talokia, so people know where Talokia came from, how it developed, the races of people that all became one, that whole story. It's not like a novel. It's more like almost like a textbook, but an intriguing textbook." And so that's done, just waiting to be published. And we want to get the trilogy out first, and then book 4 will come out, and then the prequel will come out, and book 5 will be done by then. And then it just keeps rolling. I just keep writing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's called the Savior series, and it's the chosen one. Obviously, there are parallels to Jesus, I would assume. Tell us about those parallels.
Okay, now that's interesting. In one of the writing classes I was in, um, the professor, as I was submitting real chapters for
Hmm.
review because I was just rolling through this thing since I kind of knew how to write.
Hmm.
And he came to me after, you submit stuff, he reviews it and gives you his comments. But after class one time, he came up to me and said, "Well, Fritz, have you noticed how you have a religious theme running through your book?" I went, "No." He said, "You must have done this on purpose, right?" I didn't know there was a religious theme. He goes, "Chris Gates, the last name Gates, Gates to heaven. In chapter 2, you have him laying as a baby with his head on the pillow, and his mother says, that blonde hair, almost like he has a halo." I went, "No, that was all by accident." And it was. I had, you know, I've had religious people, organizations contact me and go, "This is beautiful. It's like the second coming." I went, "Okay, um, didn't mean for it to be that, but think what you want. I let the readers think what they want." These are all G-rated books. There's
Mhm.
not a single curse word anywhere. The first, what I would call curse word, comes in book 4 when the title is Gates from Hell.
Hmm.
That's the only time. Otherwise, it's G-rated, and my publisher did that on purpose because they said, well, when it does come movie time, we want it to be on Disney. I went,
Hmm.
okay, you're in charge of that, not me.
Right.
I'm just writing. I used to maintain my own website, and my editor, Heather Hummel Gallagher, she's what an angel she is. Came to me and said, Fritz, it's time that you get a real webmaster because your website looks like it was put up in 30 minutes. I was an IT engineer for years, and I told her, I corrected her, I said, no, it took me 20 minutes to put it up. She goes, well, it looks like it. Get a real webmaster. So I did, and the difference between that old website and what's up there now is like night and day. It's just my webmaster is just, he's a genius too. But
Wonderful.
having that website, by the way, I mean, when you go there, the way he's designed it, every single book, even the ones that aren't written, their covers and backs are already done. Now, of course, the backs change when it's published. It's not reviewers on the back saying something because they read what has been written or outlines or anything so far. I have some solid reviewers that's what they do for me is they just review stuff, make sure it's right. But they're listed like on the backs of 6, 7, and 8. And so you click on the cover of the book, and it doesn't matter if it's been completed or not, and then it shows you the back on who's on there. And some of these images, like my book cover guy, the original book 8 cover, War on Earth, had an adult there with tears. I don't have that one in front of me, but had tears streaming out of her eyes as the world burns around her. He changed it to a child. That just got me. It really
Yeah.
did, because it has a much more profound effect when you see a child in war. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very powerful imagery, no doubt. It's obviously the series is very entertaining. Do you want, other than being entertained, is there a message or something you'd like readers to take away from your work?
well, in the first book, I do talk, as Chris Gates is doing politics and so forth, talk about the environment, how simple it is to just recycle. It takes no effort whatsoever. And people
Right.
say, well, I'm not pulling my trash and putting it over here. That's not trash. Trash makes no money.
Right.
Aluminum makes money. And the other message from the series is, we're all eventually going to be one. Why don't we act like it now? I
Hmm.
mean, what's to stop us from acting like it now? Nothing except attitudes. But you got to keep delivering a message for it to finally resonate with people.
Hmm.
And so just little things throughout the books do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great lessons, great values, great morals, indeed. And I do believe that we will all be humankind one day instead of Americans and Ukrainians and Russians and Chinese. Obviously, everything will meld as the world becomes more global. And hopefully that solves some of the problems. The differences among us will no longer exist to be. So hopefully we find peace. It's a wonderful series we're talking about today, folks. It is called the Savior Project series. We've been focusing on book 1. It's called The Chosen One from the Savior Project series. It is a gripping novel that explores a secret history spanning decades where life exists across the universe. Guardians watch us from the shadows, and one man, Chris Gates, is trained to lead humanity's salvation. There eventually will be 9 books in this series. The first trilogy is out right now. Fritz Franke has his own website, fritzfranke.net. You can go there, read about his work, his upcoming works as well. They're very varied, they're very interesting, and they are all great reads. Fritz, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate your time, your wit, your wisdom, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time. This time until next time on Spotlight.